Now, Home Affairs Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi released the white paper on citizenship, immigration and refugee protection yesterday. This after a draft of the publication was approved by Cabinet earlier this month. It aims to provide a framework to guide the granting of residency and citizenship to foreign nationals. The minister is advocating for a review and temporary withdrawal from 2 international agreements on refugee protection. Marisa Jacobs is the managing director at Xpatweb and has a wealth of knowledge on immigration, specializing in the application of temporary and permanent residence applications. She joins us now live in studio to tell us what all of this means. Marisa, thank you so much for coming in. What are your overall thoughts about the paper and the announcement? We knew it was coming.
Absolutely. We knew it was coming. And I think any time when there's an update in legislation around immigration or anything, it's welcomed, because we want immigration laws to be updated from time to time as the world progresses. I think one of the general comments around the white paper that we see published is that it unpacks in quite a bit of detail what the challenges are that we're facing, but it's quite low on what are the practical things that are going to be implemented. It feels like it's being introduced, but not quite the level of detail that we'd like to see when we want to comment on legislation.
And you know, that's also where I was going to come to. Public participation is open now. What should be the discussions that we're having? Where are the gaps?
Definitely. So, I mean, it's looking at immigration, it's looking at refugee, it's looking at asylum seekers. There should definitely be lots of discussion around this. Comments are so important. But I guess the question is how do we comment when there's so little really meat around the bone to give those inputs on?
And I guess maybe that's one of the things that we should bring up during those public participation comments, where we say, look, some of this is not very clear to us. Please, can you go back and come back at a later stage? That's possible.
That's possible. And there's lots of comments made around ZDP nationals, what should we be looking at, and then definitely a big unpacking around illegal foreign nationals and how do we control that. And I think that's a big and a pertinent point that we definitely want to look at. And then there's a recommendation on bringing in a committee. Wonderful. What will that committee be looking at? What will be the action plan around that?
You know, when it comes to what you just mentioned now, the people who are here illegally, that's the interesting part, because the department or government as a whole actually has no idea what the statistics are. You know, that's also a big problem, right?
Absolutely, a big problem in terms of knowing what the statistics are, because then that gives you the ability to tackle that challenge if you've got an idea around numbers. Also, lots spoken about in the paper around corrupt immigration officials, which obviously fuels the number of illegal foreigners that are in South Africa, and it also fuels how do we tackle that challenge from a execution perspective. Who is monitoring this, and are they arresting illegal foreign nationals? Are those that are enabling it getting arrested? So there's a real consequence to the enabling and to and arrests.
That actually reminds me of that big bust that the minister himself made, I think, in Kempton Park, if I'm not mistaken, at a Home Affairs department there. And it's, you know, so what you're saying basically is that they're telling us the reasons around it. Things such as our services are running low, even for the people that are already here. So more people coming in is basically going to be a problem in terms of sharing those services, right? So let's talk about the two acts. So it's the 1951 United Nations Refugee Convention and the 1967 UN Protocol relating to the status of refugees, right? So according to the minister, he says in 1996, we signed this, but now we want to withdraw or at least relook at it, which is okay, because maybe in 1996, they just signed without making sure that at least they can bring in their own conditions and remove some clause.
Yeah, I think with the benefit of hindsight, when we look back, we can always go, oh, it could have been done better, or there's more that should have been taken into consideration. Laws are changing all the time. So I do think that the times have moved on, and perhaps now is a good time to relook at that and see how do we implement it better.
Yeah. And I mean, it was 2 years into democracy in 1996. Maybe they had no idea that this many people would flock into SA.
Correct. I think there's many things that could contribute towards why it could have worked and why it hasn't worked. And
yeah, maybe they just signed because they didn't foresee that it would be this bad. So now we can withdraw, like I said, and then we can go back and ask for certain conditions and certain clauses to be removed. I understand other nations have done that because obviously they had a better understanding than our new government in the 2 years that they were in, right? But from what you're seeing with regards to these different papers that we've signed in 1996, what would you think are the clause and conditions that we could put forward for ourselves, just off of the bat?
Sure. I think there's many professionals out there that are more specialized on the asylum and the refugee area. I think the one thing that we can all agree on is that open economies where foreign nationals are welcomed in a way that they can contribute to the economy is something that has worked well internationally. But it is about policing foreign nationals that are coming into the country. We want to make sure that it's documented foreign nationals, and we also want to make sure that we are at the same time having enabling legislation that we can attract those skills through to the country while policing on the other side and making sure everyone who's in the country is documented and is contributing to the economy in a meaningful way. And those are the types of things that when the Immigration Act does get updated, including permanent residency, temporary residence, citizenship, we want to make sure that it's in a way that is limiting on the one side, but not to the detriment of also enabling the attraction of skills and the ability for skilled nationals to be able to progress to permanent residency if that makes South Africa more attractive.
And I think for me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's a very important topic to discuss now that it's been open to the public, etc., especially for a country like South Africa that is viewed as intolerant to the African foreign national.
Couldn't agree more. It's so easy to sit back and to say the act is not enabling or these are the problems. But when we get an opportunity like this where we can participate, where there's draft legislation and we've got the opportunity to come in and say, this is what the statistics are showing, this is what we see from business, this is the need, this is really what doesn't work. We must, as a community, get together, participate, and make sure that our voices are heard, because we've seen that there's been lots of updates in terms of immigration legislation, and we've seen so many of those comments being incorporated, and government is listening. They are looking for inputs, they are looking for practical examples of what can work. So I couldn't agree more that we must take this opportunity and really review what's been put forward and make suggestions.
Well, we are a new democracy. There's some things that we learn and we need to just rectify in terms of law. Thank you so much for coming to speak to us, Marisa. I really do appreciate it. And of course, we know that the Border Management Authority made a huge bust during the course of the past few days, and maybe that leg of what the Home Affairs Department has introduced in terms of our porous borders in South Africa will also assist. Marisa Jacobs is the Managing Director at Xpatweb.